Welcome to WrestleWolf. This is AEW Weekly. I'm Dr. Damian Gibson, and unfortunately this week, we don't have the man who always deals in kayfabe, Matthew Kayfabe. His family invented kayfabe, by the way, and it's named after his family. If you're wondering, he's taking a break. He's taking a holiday. So he'll be back next week. Nothing to worry about. But, I thought I'd kick it old school and do a solo episode. Yeah. I'll just sort of briefly give my thoughts about Full Gear and then this week's Dynamite, which obviously feeds off Full Gear. I think Matt and I were sort of speaking about the booking decisions that we thought would happen and what needed to happen in Full Gear, and I think you want to talk about a return to form, considering the prior pay-per-view. This was it. I don't remember enjoying watching a pay-per-view as much as I have this one for a while. It has been a little bit a little bit difficult in this lockdown environment to really sort of remember. Everything just sort of blurs into one. But I did very, very much enjoy watching this Kenny Omega beating Hangman Page in what was, I thought, and Matt has given me some very brief thoughts on Full Gear. This was his favourite match of the night, and I it's not mine, but I completely understand where he's coming from. It was just a great resolution to what had been a pretty great story. Kenny Omega is now the number one contender, and as we had sort of said previously, I think that's probably the right call. Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega, I think, is something that everyone can get into, especially with heel Kenny Omega sort of galloping up over the hill. If I had one complaint about this pay-per-view, is it probably a little long. Matches like Orange Cassidy versus John Silver probably didn't need to be on there. I can understand that they want to give those guys pay-per-view time, especially Orange Cassidy. It's a selling point, but it probably just... I mean, the pay-per-view ran at about 3 hours and 40 minutes. So that's a huge investment for anybody. Even if you're the most rabid AEW or WWE fan, I mean, to invest 4 hours into something... I just think it's something that wrestling people really need to start thinking about and looking into. I mean, Matt and I do another show about WCW Nitro, and I mean, each week when I sit down to watch it and notice that it's 45 minutes or 50 minutes, the relief that just washes over me is palpable, and also I think it forces, speaking from someone who does do a little bit of writing and is doing a bit at the moment. I mean, I know I can be pointed out as being a hypocrite here with our podcast, but if you've got a limited amount of time, I think it helps with storytelling, because then you have to make decisions on what's important and what isn't important. I think Dynamite at 2 hours is probably about right. You cut the ad breaks out, it's about an hour and a half. I think if anything goes any longer than that, it starts to become hard to fill all of that space. I know the counter argument to that would be, well, on the pay-per-view, that's the blow off to the majority of the angles, and you want to let the boys and girls have their 20, 30 minute matches to really sell the payoff of that storyline. I get that. But I just, if you're trying to get anyone other than me or you, dear listener, watching wrestling again, I think as an industry, wrestling needs to start thinking about that, because it's out of control. If you were watching everything, I mean, there's some weeks where WWE and AEW have pay-per-views, and if you were trying to watch everything across the board, you would legitimately end up with close to 20 hours of content to watch in a week. I don't know about you, but, I barely have that amount of leisure time. So it's just asking a lot of not only the Rusted On fans to invest that much time into watching the product, whatever product it is that you're watching. But it is a huge ask, to, like, let's say you've got a mate who's kind of into the wrestling, and you're like, oh, do you want to come around and watch it? And he says, yeah. How long does this thing go for? 4 hours. It's kind of, I think most people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's my little rant on that. Darby Allin picked up the TNT title over Cody Rhodes. This is the correct booking, and it was done in a cool way. Getting Team Taz involved afterwards and beating down on Darby was great. Cody doesn't need a title to be Cody Rhodes, and this elevates Darby Allin, so I was really happy with that. Next up, we had Hikaru Shida, who beat Nyla Rose. I was pretty stunned by this result. In a way, I'm happy that Shida gets another chance, or more importantly, AEW gets another chance to do something with Hikaru. Please give her a story. Something. Give her something, guys. Because she's great in ring. But yeah, you're just not giving her anything. Why do any of us care about her? Besides the fact of she's the champ. That's great, but there's got to be something. It's got to be more than that. It can't. I know just on Twitter today there was some back and forth between Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. So that's an angle I think everyone could get into. And I know I've sort of been saying the last month, it's time for Shida to go, blah, blah, blah. I just want to reiterate again that it's not because myself, and I think I could probably speak for Matt here as well, think that she's a bad wrestler or we don't want to see her again or anything like that. This has been one of the few occasions I think that AEW's booking has let a talent down. Anyway, she won, and that's cool. It'll just be interesting to see. We really need to start to see something happening in the women's division that's more than 5-10 minutes every week on Dynamite. Next up, we had the AEW Tag Team Champions FTR taking on the Young Bucks. I was wrong again. Nick and Matt won this, and I wasn't overly upset. I don't want it to get Vince Russo where belts are swapping every week, but I don't think it hurts a team like FTR to drop the titles. They came in, they got the titles, they dropped them to the Bucks. You will see these teams wrestle again, and FTR will beat the Young Bucks to become champions again, and that's cool. I'm happy to see more of these guys doing stuff together. Maybe not immediately, but yeah, this match was great. I really like both teams. And we'll get to Dynamite in a second. I've seen that the Young Bucks have swung back to being a face team, which I'm not overly keen on, but I know everyone else will be happy with that. So again, I thought this was good booking. Man, the Elite Deletion match, I loved this match. This is everything. I said to Matthew during the week, we do actually talk to each other outside of the podcast, and about wrestling or music, or politics. But anyway, I just asked him, he's very busy and then was going on holidays, or have you watched Full Gear yet? He's like, yeah. And I said, "I'll guess which match that I love," and he didn't. He wasn't sure, and I was like, "Oh, it was this one." And I said, it's everything that I love about pro wrestling. It's silly, but told a story. It was hard hitting. There were hardcore elements to it. It was imaginative. I know there will be criticism of like, oh, well, we've seen this before on TNA. This is just another deletion match. But we haven't seen much of it on AEW. And I was really glad that Matt Hardy was allowed to do what Matt Hardy does. It may have been Matt Hardy's call recently to do the sort of many, the 3 faces of Matt Hardy or the 7 faces of Matt Hardy, whatever he's been doing recently. But this was great. And Sammy Guevara is a star. I mean, he will be a top guy in AEW. Maybe you could maybe make an argument that he already is, but the apprenticeship that he is doing with Chris Jericho in the Inner Circle and doing stuff like this with Matt Hardy, it's very apparent that the older guys in the locker room see huge potential with Sammy Guevara, and the cameos from Gangrel and the Hurricane, Ortiz and Santana were great. Private Party were great. Everyone who showed up in this did fantastically well. And, man, it's just, Matt's retort to me was, so it was everything that you loved about professional wrestling, except for actual wrestling. I was like, there were 2 rings in the match. That means there's double the wrestling. But it's that thing, it's one of the few things that I have taken from Bruce Pritchard and really agree with him on, that you need to have different types of things or different types of matches on a pay-per-view. One, because it breaks things up a little bit, but it gets different types of people to watch it. And, I've always been sort of teased for this stance, but I'll never back down from it. I like bizarre, left of center wrestling because my attitude is like, this thing is already ridiculous. It's already ridiculous. So why not? I'm not saying every match should be like that. Like there was a time 3 or 4 months ago where everyone was like, oh, is wrestling just cinematic matches now? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that should happen, but they have their place, and if they're done well, done with love and with imagination, then it can. This is the type of match that you could show to mates who are either lapsed wrestling fans or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever who's not that into it, and just do a test with them. This sounds like a fun Saturday night. Honey, I've got a test for you. But, challenge them. You're like, look, watch this and tell me that you're not entertained by it. Like, yeah, I'm not denying it's not stupid. I'm not denying it's not silly. But that's the point. Tell me that you don't get some enjoyment out of it by the end of the match. If they say no, then obviously you need to break up with them because they hate wrestling. Yeah, I just, I could literally do an hour on how much I love that match, but we don't have that kind of time. I was thinking that this was only going to be like a 10-15 minute episode, and we're already up to that, so I'll try and keep going. MJF beats Chris Jericho, and he's allowed to join the Inner Circle. We'll sort of talk about this more on Dynamite, but this was a great match as well. I thought the last 3 matches were really strong. I love everything that Chris Jericho does professionally, and there was a moment when I was watching this match of like, oh man, we're only going to have a couple more years of watching this, not to be a Debbie Downer about it, but in a way it's an opportunity for us to start to sort of think, he turned 50 during the week, so I mean, who knows? Certain wrestlers just can't stop doing it. But I don't. I see Chris probably being around wrestling, but moving into maybe commentary or producing, or I know he loves being out there and being in the limelight. But anyway, this whole story's been great. It has not ended. This is just the beginning. This match and everyone involved was fantastic. And then Jon Moxley got Eddie Kingston to say, "I quit." I loved this match. I really believed the story that these guys were telling. Even though it was kind of a short-ish run, I loved it, and I want to see Eddie Kingston do more. It's weird, man, because in NWA, I didn't hate him or anything like that, but he just sort of, I didn't notice him. His, I wouldn't say improvement, because he's kind of doing the same thing, but he's just so magnetic. Like as soon as he walks out on stage, if you're looking at your phone, you put it down. If you're on your laptop, you shut the laptop. Like if you're talking to your mate, everyone shuts up and watches him. He has. It's hard to quantify what he has. I think it comes from in what is essentially or what is perceived from outside of wrestling fandom, something that is fake. It's all fake is always the first word that non-wrestling people bring up with you. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you've had this conversation where you inevitably tell someone the embarrassing fact that you are into pro wrestling as an adult. And, the more sort of moronic people that you have those conversations with will be like, it's fake. So when wrestling has that reputation, even though you try and explain that, like, well, no, it's kind of meta now and this and that and blah, blah. Eddie Kingston just comes along as, or just comes across as real. And this match did. And I loved it. I really love Full Gear. And there was a sense of kind of relief for me as probably an official AEW guy now. It's been a sort of slow and gradual thing. I started off at a point where I was like, no, this is great. Now I've got two companies to like. And, I've just, a few things. I mean, WWE have just gone full heel. Like the company has turned into a heel itself against its fans, against its roster. Like just this. I don't even know where to start. I got to use an example. Like 9 things jump into my conscious mind immediately. And there's always been that sort of element of WWE where I've ignored it. It's been like, they're not great, but, like there's a lot of worse people out there. Even when AEW started, I was like, well, it's not like the Khans are the greatest family of all time. You don't get that much money by being nice. But, I just really look forward to watching the product. And there was my sense of relief came from the last pay-per-view. I was like, maybe they've run out of ideas. Maybe the steam is... disappearing out of the engine. Is that a metaphor? Is that something people say? I don't think it is. Anyway, but they're back, baby. So I was just happy. I was just, and ultimately, no matter what you're watching or what you're into, as long as wrestling's bringing us happiness, I suppose, it's really the only marker that needs to be hit. Did you enjoy it? Yes, I did. Cool. But it's fun to talk about the intricacies, right? Let's get into Dynamite. We started the episode with Matt Sydal versus Brian Cage. Brian Cage won this one. I was into seeing these guys wrestle each other. It was sort of that thing of like, oh, cool. You know, I know these guys from different places. I've never seen them wrestle before. There's always, they just, AEW have that, you know, even if I'm wrong, you know, maybe the majority of you guys have seen these guys wrestle in other places, whether it's Ring of Honor or, you know, Impact or whatever it might be. But I hadn't. And so, I don't know, there was just, you know, I was like, this is cool. I'm into watching these guys wrestle. And it's good to see that they're, yes, it's on Dark, but they are sort of pushing Seidel a little bit because I've always had a soft spot for him. And I thought he handled himself pretty well in this match. But I'm very disappointed that Matt isn't here to talk about this because I know he'll be happy about the very apparent push that Brian Cage is getting. But anyway, we'll speak about that next time. Cody Rhodes comes out, gets confronted by Jay Cargill, who I don't know anything about, so I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to piss people off. And then she drops the bombshell that Shaq is going to come and wrestle Cody at some point. That seems to be what's happening. That he's awoken a giant, and yeah, that Shaquille O'Neal is going to come and wrestle Cody Rhodes. I don't know. I'm kind of into it, man. I thought Brandy, who is someone I have criticized quite a bit, I don't know whether... I think some of it's been fair. I think some of it is her association with the Nightmare Collective / family, which I'm just a bit... I don't know. Whenever I smell nepotism, it always kind of bugs me in wherever it might be. But she was great in this segment. She killed it. You know, if we get to see more of this Brandy, then I'm into it. I think ultimately Brandy, right? Like, it's either she is a wrestler or she isn't. There seems to be this sort of like, you know, they push her out there a little bit and then they pull her back and they push her out there. It's like, look, we all know that she's Cody's wife, but she can wrestle a little bit. Give her the opportunity, man. Like, put her out there, put her in a storyline, which I think they're doing here, and just let her sink or swim. If she does well, everyone will be into it. If she doesn't, then, you know, everyone will have their fucking say on Twitter, and she can go back to being, you know, valet or a manager or whatever the case may be. But anyway, I was into this. The bunkhouse match. I think Matt and I would get a lot of fun out of talking about this if it was just the two of them. But seeing it's just me, I'll, you know, everyone in this match gave 110%, and it was a much, you know, it's a bunkhouse match, essentially a hardcore match. You know, the thing that was annoying is Excalibur kept trying to set up Tony and the bad boy to explain what a bunkhouse match was, and they just kept both getting distracted. It was like talk about a couple of old men. But yeah, look, I mean, nothing's going to get me into QT Marshall, but I thought his he did a job well in this match. I mean, they won and they got over Butcher and the Blade. Hopefully, they get sent back to Dark. Listening to Cody Rhodes on AEW Restricted this week, though, and how often he mentioned QT Marshall, I don't know if that's going to be the case, unfortunately. Next up, we've got MJF being inducted into the Inner Circle. This had some moments that I was into. Yeah, like MJF doing a poem that were Drake lyrics made me laugh. Ortiz called that out straight away. Jericho basically saying to Ortiz, like, well, if you got a problem with MJF, you got a problem with me because I was the one who brought, you know, I made the stipulation. I've brought MJF in. MJF then says that he's got tickets for Vegas for everybody. And, you know, they head off out of the ring. Next up, Scorpio Sky versus Sean Spears. That happened. Next up, we've got Red Velvet versus Tay Conti. Kind of a similar thing here as well. Conti got the win. She resisted being being a heel to do it. So I think this is setting up a feud with Anna Jay. I don't know. It was fine, but again, like, there isn't much story going on here. Like, a little blossom of a story came out of this match, but it needs to be explored. And I know Matt and I bang on about this every week, but you're meant to be the inclusive promotion. You're meant to be the forward-thinking promotion. The promotion for young people. I know I don't count in that area, but, people like cool, funky dudes like Matt and everyone else his age and younger. Just a forward-thinking promotion. That's the way AEW, forward-thinking, inclusive, all things that I, are really important to me. But when you're... The women just need more love, man. And I know the argument would be like, the roster's not depthful enough and all that kind of thing. How do you know if you're not going to... Like, if you don't give any of them an opportunity outside of 5-6 minute matches every week, you're not going to know. You need to give them an angle. You need to give them storylines, Anyway. Next up, we have Rey Fenix versus Penta Elzira Mido. This was another amazing match between these two. I could watch them wrestle every week. The sort of underlying storyline of Eddie Kingston trying to split them up, I liked. It's only been a couple of weeks in the making, but the thing that I did like, Penta defeated Phoenix again. Eddie Kingston comes out and kicks Rey Fenix out of the ring. Basically, it's like, Penta's my best friend. Like, let's just you and me hang out, and, like, don't worry about Rey Fenix. He's the worst. Blah 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 blah. And then PAC comes out, and immediately goes after Eddie Kingston, which is just great storytelling. In the sense of, like, the Lucha Brothers being part of Eddie Kingston's PAC, the Kingston Boys, PAC and the Lucha Brothers having their death triangle that only lasted a few weeks before, the dreaded vid came along. But there is some history there, and they drew on that to kick off this storyline. And their PAC looks great. He's another welcome addition back to the roster. Another top guy for them to draw upon. Eddie Kingston versus PAC. Yeah, man. Give me more of that. Give me all of it. Yeah. But really good Dynamite. I really enjoyed it. Full Gear was great. Dynamite was great. Yeah. I can't believe I went 30 minutes on my own. Well, essentially it's 2 episodes in one, but yeah. Every day when I look at our stats, I'm amazed by how many people are downloading this and listening to it and enjoying it, and either on YouTube or through all your podcast platform choice. Thank you guys. Matt and I would get together every week and talk about wrestling anyway, but to be able to do this with a good friend and have fun, and then also have other people be into that, is a really amazing feeling. You guys make that possible. Like, without you, there is no podcast. It doesn't exist. If you put a podcast out and no one listens to it, does it exist? No. The answer is no. So thank you so much, guys. Rate and review us. Keep telling your friends about us. Any way that you can support us, we appreciate it. You can follow us on all the socials. I'm going to wrap it up there and get out of your hair. We'll be back to normal programming next week. Matthew will be back. We'll have a Nitro episode out on Monday. Dynamite later in the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Depending on schedules. But we will be back. And until then, Pepe's dead, brother friends.